Hello and welcome to the 445 Productive Food Joy Show with your host and your boy, Dr. Michael Datcher. The show airs each weekday morning, hella early AF at 4:45 a.m. here on YouTube's Michael Datcher channel and 4:45 p.m. on Facebook Live. Guys, today we're talking about miraculous goals, as in goals that, seemed like it would take a miracle to make them manifest, and yet we can make them manifest. So thanks for joining us here. You can go to productivethroughjoy.com, see about us. We speak to groups, schools, and organizations about being productive through joy. So let's get into the piece. As my friend Marcellus says. My friend Marcellus is a poet. And when he starts a new piece, he'll introduce it, then he'll say, all right, let's get into the piece. That's one of our signifiers for excellence in the world stage, the writing community that I'm a part of here in LA. So, guys, we're talking today about, miraculous goals. I had this crazy dream last night. Wow, so deep. Where I was taking a leap off of some very high edifice, building, ramp, something. And I just leapt into it, right? I mean, just risking everything, going out there. And I screamed and I just was grateful. I was like, and I actually screamed, thank you, God. And then I woke up, I woke up out of that dream screaming that, thank you, God. And so I read that as a signifier for leaping into our goals. For many of us, including me, I've got big goals. I've set a lot of seemingly, for many people, including me at times, seemingly impossible goals for myself and my family. When you dreaming so big, it's like to maintain that belief, it takes a lot. It's simple, but it ain't easy, right? So, and I was just thinking about just diving in. I've been reading Black Athena, which should be required reading. This is a side note about the origins of civilization, of course, in terms of the modern context. Wow, and just in the 17th and 18th century, how the Europeans in Greece in particular, before the Common Era, so before the birth of Christ. It was well known that, according to the ancient history of recorded documentation from Herodotus to many other people. Herodotus is just one of the many, many sources that this book uses, of course. But man, just the history of ancient civilizations and how European people, with the coming of the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, because really the rise of racism and kind of and Helen, what I would call philia, trying to prop up Greece, that they inverted the commonly accepted idea that Greek got its organization of societal principles from Egypt, which makes sense because Egypt was such a dominant society in that region. I'm just totally off topic today, but this book is moving me so much, and just the voluminous evidence this book is putting forward. Oh man! And so I know that, of course, the classicists, they know all this stuff because it's so well documented, and just the impact of racism, because white supremacy is predicated on the idea that European civilization is the foundation of modern civilization. And I know that the classicalists, folks who study classical Greek literature and society, they know this. This is all very, very documented. And just the perpetuation of the lie. It reminds me of the big lie that Donald Trump told. Like, these people know the truth. And the willful lying and ignorance and the inverting of what the author calls the ancient model to what he defines as the Aryan model, or the white model, the racist model, which came about and was concretized in the 18th and 19th centuries. Wow, I mean, it's really terrible, but because that's what white supremacy is predicated upon, and which allows the police to kill black people and all times and use imperial power to go dominate other people. It's rooted in the idea and their belief and their fighting and the lie that European society is the foundation of civilization. Of course, I know that, obviously, but when you read the documentation that's in the public record in history, and you know that they know, wow, it's pretty. It reminds me of Donald Trump. Like, that's what Donald Trump was all about, is white supremacy. And the white supremacist ideology, even among scholars, is so strong. That is the real big lie, that Greek civilization that they argue in the modern world gave birth to Egyptian civilization, or understandings about the high level of political organization, societal, spiritual organization, and mystical and philosophical organization that we have coming out of Africa, that the Greeks, that Europeans have taken credit for it, and they know it's a lie. So this book is, so I'm sure that's why I had that crazy dream last night, because I've been reading many books, of course, all the time, but I'm reading now Black Athena, which that should be required reading. So as a side note, that should be required reading in every school. You know, this whole attack on critical race theory, this idea that white Americans don't want their children learning about systemic racism. That is why we have lies like the Greek origins of civilization. That is why Donald Trump could be the president, because people don't want to deal with the big lie. This is not today's topic, sorry. But you know, when you read stuff, you get motivated. So we're talking about miraculous ghosts. So, but when you know your history, when you know the truth, when you're able to access truth and history, it allows you to understand, because the Egyptian system is based upon what they call mystery systems. Man, this stuff is so powerful. You know, the idea that thoughts are things that you can use your mind to manifest through the visualization and through chanting. You can manifest things in the world of phenomena. That's the ancient African tradition, rooted, I'm sure actually, because that Egyptian philosophy comes from what they call Upper Egypt, which is the lower, so sub-Saharan Egypt as well, sub-Saharan Africa. These ideas in Egypt are predicated on, many of them anyway, are predicated on sub-Saharan African traditions, and just the idea, which is why how whites justify enslaving Black people, because they claim that we were not civilized. Wow, so so devastating. The impact of white supremacy, it's got to be dismantled. I mean, the impact of white supremacy has been devastating for this planet, and even for white people. But I digress. So we're talking today about miraculous goals. So point one is that you want to set goals that seem miraculous, which kind of segues into point two, is that a part of that is you want to be able to access what I'll call mystical power. So the ancient Egyptian mystery systems were all about that, mystical power. Man, I'm just thinking about all this stuff now. The Phoenicians, Rosicrucians, the Kabbalists. You know, it's predicated, and if you know the history, you know the work. I've read many books that dealt with this material, of course, but this is a book that's kind of put it all in one volume. In terms of, it was really 3 volumes, but it made the connective tissue so clear, based upon the evidence in one spot. It's such a thoroughly researched book. It's really, Martin Bernardo, man, thank you so much for this book. It's so powerful. If you don't have time to read, it should be required reading, but people won't always read this kind of a book. But there are documentaries around Black Athena, and then of course the attack on it, which is also very fascinating, because of course white people are like, no, don't tell the truth. Don't present all this evidence, don't do it. There's an error on page 247, so the whole thing is dismissed. So they've tried to debunk. You can't just debunk this book, because the book is a compendium of thousands, literally thousands of sources and facts, thousands. It's really, I'm only on volume 1 of a 3-volume book. This book is really helpful. So, yeah, so that's point 2, is that once you can access this kind of ancient, what I call ancient African spiritual wisdom, or ancient African spiritual science, you can then, in my experience, certainly, you can do what seems to be impossible for others, which goes into point 3. When you can do what seems to be impossible, what we call it demonstrating, having goals that are so big that people are like, man, come on, bro. You can't become the president as a Black man, or you can't do whatever you're going to do. And when you do it, they're like, maybe I can do something that seems impossible to other people, you know? There's something about just seeing someone do it. And with this famous story of Roger Bannister, I ran track. I was a miler in high school. And before Roger Bannister ran the mile, that 4-minute barrier in under 4 minutes hadn't been broken. But once he broke the 4-minute mile barrier, sooner thereafter, many people broke the mile because they saw him do it first. Boom, goes to dynamite. We'll see you next week. Today at 4:45 p.m. Until then, let's talk about it and be about it. Deuces.